It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
The meaning of this, and this is a very mysterious symbol which you've heard all sorts of explanations for it, but I'm going to give you the Masonic Illuminati inner meaning of what this means tonight. And it's going to probably gross you out and astonish you, and I apologize in advance for that. But this is what it means. Crowley reveals the secret behind the all-seeing eye symbol in one of his books, the Book of Thoth, which is a very advanced manual on tarot card readings. And this is the eye of Lucifer.
And by the time the council came to a close, they had three major policies that were going to be followed. First, they were to see to it that humans would be made to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist. And he told us, he says, look, we worship spirits. We worship Lucifer and all his angels. They're just as beautiful as they did before they were cast out of heaven. He says there was a misunderstanding in the whole thing. He said among the inhabitants of the galaxies. And he says our master was misunderstood. And to these people, they are sold to the fact that Christ will not return to this planet with power and great glory. He's going to abdicate all claims to the planet. Because the high priest once said that Christ will abdicate all claim to the planet because he knows that it is lawfully and rightfully Satan's.
Says the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now hindereth will hinder until he be taken out of the way. And then shall the wicked one be revealed, whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Where is this guy coming from? From out of the Abuso. So he's not just some political leader that happens to be kind of gifted. No, this guy is empowered by Satan himself.
I will ascend into heaven. Number 2, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Number 3, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. Number 4, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. Number 5, I will be like the Most High. That is Lucifer's 5-point plan of what he said he's going to do. And notice, how many points do we have on this star? He said this, the pentagram, quote, has one use only, and that is to call up the power of Satan and bring the kingdom of the devil into manifestation on the earth. So whenever a pentagram is used, it is probably the highest satanic ceremony that can be used to bring in the kingdom and the power of Satan. Think of it.
He said, go to the Word for 666.
Did you hear that? Listen carefully. It says, I want to live it backwards, like the Zep, whose power is Satan. Did you hear that? And it says, he will give you 666.
Former head of the FBI, Los Angeles, California, retired in 1979. A gentleman came up and gave me a book. He said, Ted, in fact, that lecture was specifically on the McDonald case. Ted, here's what it's all about. Take this book and read it. And this is the book, folks. It's called Pawns in the Game. In 1776, Weishaupt organized the Illuminati to put the plot into execution. The word Illuminati is derived from Lucifer and means holders of the light. Using the lie that his objective was to bring about a one-world government, to enable men with proven mental ability to govern the world, he recruited about 2,000 followers. These included the most intelligent men in the field of arts and letters, education, the sciences, finance, and industry. He then established lodges of the Grand Orient to be their secret headquarters. Weishaupt's revised plan required his Illuminati to do the following things to help them accomplish their purpose. 1. Use monetary and sex bribery to obtain control of people already occupying positions in high places in the various levels of all governments and other fields of human endeavor. Once an influential person had fallen for the lies, deceits, and temptations of the Illuminati, they were to be held in bondage by application of political and other forms of blackmail and threats of financial ruin, public exposure, and physical harm, and even death to themselves and their loved ones. Number 6, the power of our resources must remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained the strength that no cunning or force can undermine it. And if you will notice, it's been a very few people know about the Illuminati, so they have maintained their invisibility until most recently. Number 7, advocated mob psychology to obtain control of the masses. Number 8, use alcohol, drugs, moral corruption, and all forms of vice to systematically corrupt the youth of the nation.
You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? What's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society.
And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger, for we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Like the priest mentioned, there's thousands of spirit worshippers in only different societies of spirit worshippers in this world. But he says we are the elite. We know the real truth about the Master and his angels. The Master's grain plane for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause. So we continued, after we express ourselves, we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plane is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet. Unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it.
Masonic mind control, that the alchemical managers have bred over a millennium, over 1,000 years, they said they bred a human race that is most wretched, stupid, and ignorant. It's so unrivaled in thousands of years. He said these blind slaves say they are free and highly educated, even as they march behind, notice this word, signs. Have you ever taken time to analyze a sign or a billboard or a logo? He says a medieval peasant would have run away in panic-stricken terror from the signs that modern man embraces.
You know the vowels.
Just answer the question.
Well, I mean, I just had to learn how to pronounce it. I mean, it hasn't been a living spoken language in more than 1,000 years. I mean, look at this. It says, a traveler from distant stars escaped from a dying world looking for a way to extend his own life. His body decaying and weak, he couldn't prevent his own demise. Apparently his whole species was becoming extinct. So he traveled searched the galaxies looking for a way to cheat death. And look here, he came to a world rich with life, where he encountered a primitive race, humans. A species which, with all his powers and knowledge, he could maintain indefinitely. He realized within a human body he had a chance for a new life. Now, he apparently found a young boy. It says, as the frightened villagers ran, night became day. Curious and without fear, he walked towards the light. Ra took him and possessed his body like some kind of a parasite looking for a host. And inhabiting this human form, he appointed himself ruler. He used the Stargate to bring thousands of people here to this planet as workers for the mines, just like the one we saw. This mineral is clearly the building block of all his technology. With this, he can sustain eternal life. Now, something happened, where is it, back on Earth? A rebellion or uprising, and the Stargate was buried there. Fearful of a rebellion here, Ra outlawed reading and writing. He didn't want the people to remember the truth.
At what point did this demon worship start to affect you personally?
Well, it wasn't too long that the priest mentioned to us that the time had arrived for us to start trusting the spirits and give the spirits a chance to work for us. And there was a number of gifts that you could choose from. You see.
Americans are asking, why do they hate us? They hate what they see right here in this chamber. A democratically elected government.
Number 10, deal with the use of slogans such as equity, liberty, fraternity into the mouths of the masses in psychological warfare. Boy, if that isn't Bill Clinton, I never saw it, never heard it before. That man is unbelievable. As former Congressman Denemeyer describes him, he's a draft-dodging, womanizing, pathological liar, and he certainly fits into item number 10. Number 11 dealt with war, number 11 theory, and gold. In 1773, Adam Weishaupt set down policies that were publicly announced in 1939, folks. 1773, publicly announced 1939 by Britain and the United States. And the war should be directed so that the nations on both sides are placed further in debt and peace conferences conducted so neither combatants obtain territorial rights. Yalta. Perfect example. Stalin, Roosevelt, Winston Churchill after World War II. Number 12 told those present that they must use their wealth to have candidates chosen to public office who would be obedient to their demands and would be used as pawns in the game by the men behind the scenes. The advisors will have been bred, reared, and trained from childhood to rule the affairs of the world. We have that today without any question. The men behind the scenes. Number 13, control the press. If you heard my lecture yesterday on Oklahoma City, I documented that the mainstream media is being controlled by the big power people, by the phony politicians, by the bureaucrats, without any question about it.
Now a question. What have Herbert Hoover, Art Linkletter, Jack London, and Richard Nixon all had in common? Well, they've all been members of the exclusive all-male Bohemian Club in California, where every year at this time the elite from around the country get together for 2.5 weeks of fun and games.
Among its members are businessmen like Leonard Firestone and Edgar Kaiser, and political figures like Gerald Ford, Henry Kissinger, William French Smith, and George Shultz. President Reagan, Vice President Bush, and Defense Secretary Weinberger are members of other camps. Richard Nixon is a bohemian, and so are high-ranking executives of such companies as Eastern Airlines, Standard Oil of Indiana, and Bank of America. Privacy is one of the Grove's most cherished virtues. Members may not photograph, record, speak, or write about activities at the retreat. While many public officials are Grove members, the press is a distinctly unwelcome guest.
We're from ABC News.
Get back there.
Can we talk to somebody in the...
Get back there.
Jim Morrison, too, was into Aleister Crowley. And right here, I want to show you a picture on the back of one of his albums. And here you see Jim Morrison, and under him you see a little statue of Aleister Crowley. And Jim Morrison, too, was into demonism and admitted that he was possessed by spirits.
Also in the street plan of Washington, you find pentagrams. Symbols are not in themselves negative. The five-pointed star, the pentagram as we call it, it's not in itself negative. Just as the swastika in its original form is not negative, it was just a symbol of the sun. Other things too, probably. What the Nazis did, however, was take the swastika and turn it round to indicate the negative. It's what they call reverse symbolism in Satanism. So what they do with the pentagram, which is why it's become a satanic symbol, is to turn it upside down, so it's pointing down. Reverse symbolism. It's the same with the dove, Semiramis. To the general population, the dove equals peace, love, and all this stuff. Reverse symbolism, the dove equals death and destruction.
You got the ancient gods, which were translated into God, which are worshipped by the religions unknowingly, most of them. Same with the secret societies. And the same gods, demonic entities as they're called in this case, that are worshipped by the Satanists, are the same gods that are worshipped by the secret societies and the religions unknowingly. In Satanism, it's knowingly. And these gods, these non-human entities, operate just outside the frequency range of human sight, what is known as visible light. It's so important for people to understand that when they look through their eyes, they're not seeing everything that exists in the space they're looking at. We call space anyway. You know, they don't use these pentagrams and stuff just for fun. I mean, some of them might, you know, the lower ones don't really understand it, but the ones that are really involved, that understand the way reality works and how you can manipulate it, these pentagrams and these various symbols used in Satanism, like the reversed pentagram is the classic satanic symbol, and the circle around it. And these gods, as they're perceived, feed off human energy.
They apparently are powerless except to the extent they can embody some person. The demons apparently are disembodied spirits looking for embodiment.
And the priest went on saying that the plan of Satan to deceive the human family this way, he says is the most intriguing thing to his mind. And he went on saying how it was going to be brought about. said that a fellow by the name of Darwin and another fellow by the name of Thomas Henry Huxley would be used by the spirits because in their childhood they had been hypnotized by medical doctors, and they figured that they would be real good subjects to lead the people into this belief that they had, that Satan wanted to bring into people's lives.
Now, what were those 3 points again, Roger? The 3 things were, number 1, that they did not want Satan did not want the human family to think that he or his angels existed.
Right.
The second point that you made had to do with taking control of people's minds.
That's right.
The third point was what?
Was to destroy the Bible without burning it.
Okay.
See.
And what was the strategy on that?
On that, it was very interesting. Because after the Great General Council, it was decided that Satan would tutor Charles Darwin personally in setting up the principles of his theories of evolution. He was tutored by Lucifer himself, fallen Lucifer. And at that time, it was understood, Satan and his spirit counselors understood, that if a person was led to believe in the theory of evolution, it would, in his life, destroy completely the creation week of the Bible, the fall of man, and plan of redemption. It would go away with it.
In one fell swoop.
Yeah. He said the supposed spirits of the dead that you're talking with are demon spirits. They're fallen angels. They're beautiful beings.
Just set it out, just like that.
Oh, yeah. Because it gives the demon spirits an opportunity to impersonate the dead. She said her voice went through me. The power.
Sharing your bed. I say I slept in the bed. Even if I did sleep in the bed, it's okay. I am not going to do anything sexual to a child. It's not where my heart is. I would slip my wrist first. I would never do anything like that. That's not Michael Jackson. I'm sorry. That's someone else. That's someone else.
As God has shown us by turning stones to bread. Has God turned stones to bread? That's a lie. In fact, that's a quote of Satan right out of the Bible. Because the scriptures say, Satan said, turn these stones to bread.
Number 6, the power of our resources must remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained the strength that no cunning or force can undermine it.
And I want you to let them know that if there is any terrorism, we know who to blame. The point is, if any terrorism comes, it's from this government.
Justice and cruelty have always been at war, and we know that God is not neutral between them.
And with Lucifer, the fallen cherubim, he's very smart. He's going to win, and Christ's going to abdicate the rights of the planet. He's going to resurrect his people, have established his kingdom that lasts for ever and ever. God won't be able to destroy him because it would be against God's, the Creator's nature to destroy Lucifer in the fire. Beside that, he said, spirits now, even spirits, have the capacity now to outlive fire. He says, you don't believe it, go to India or some of those countries where they have firewalkers. And it's done by the power of demon spirits. These people are energized by demon spirits, so they can walk on those hot coals without burning themselves.
And this is what the high priest said.
And he says, if you want to use fire, you can use it. It's not going to burn anybody. So that's the way they believe.
So this high priest was almost talking to your group in an evangelistic fervor.
Oh yeah, because he figures that he's going to be one of the higher ups in the great kingdom.
The Cloven Hoof 2 was a black pamphlet, and in that were instructions either for your group or plans that the church or what we refer to as the Illuminati were planning on doing. Now you need to understand that the Illuminati, to a Satanist, you're told that they are very powerful satanic spiritual beings. One of the steps on that plan said this: we will infiltrate the education and media system. We will find a way to make evil look cute. We will seize and capture the minds of all youth. We will implant within them satanic and Luciferian doctrine, theology, and ideology. Then we will take that child and generate him up into adulthood. And as he reaches adulthood, he will pass those things down from generation to generation, from his childhood to the next childhood to the next childhood, until we have captured the minds of every individual. You can actually toss those into a fire, and as they're burning, you'll see little red spirits come up in those flames every time. Those are known as fire spirits.
I believe that it has everything to do with what happened and what is going on. Genesis chapter 11. The tower appears as the number 11. Each tower is exactly 110 stories tall, which is 11 times 10. They were destroyed on September 11th. The first tower was hit by what flight? 11. But I call the Illuminati those men or women, but it's primarily men, who are working behind the scenes, who are illuminated to the secret plan. In other words, these guys, these are people on this earth who know that they are actively promoting a plan to enthrone Lucifer on planet Earth.
Amongst the very educated class, architects, doctors, lawyers, priests, brokers, and the leisure class.
These are people who have made pacts with the devil.
That's right. It's really the best, the more accurate way of describing would be that they have indulged themselves in the worship of the goat, of the prince, of the serpent, of Satan, of Lucifer, and they lead perfectly normal lives. They're jewel merchants. They travel. They're prominent in their own way, but they do have this indulgence.
The belief is that everybody was created to be happy forever, and God wants everybody to enjoy heaven, the joys of heaven, the perpetuity of heaven, the peace of heaven, and the ecstasy of heaven. The demons, excluded from that and barred from it because of their rebellion, want to make sure that as many human beings as possible don't attain it.
They can assume form, including spacemen or solid objects like flying saucers or so on. That's why when they appear on the radar scope and a jet gets up there, they vanish right in front of the palisade because they're nothing but a spirit.
We'll start up here. In 1784, an act of God placed the Bavarian government in possession of evidence which proved the existence of the continuing Luciferian conspiracy. This explains the previous 9 pages, goes into it in detail. We don't have time to do it completely. Conspiracy. Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit-trained professor of canon law, defected from Christianity and embraced the Luciferian ideology while teaching at Ingolstadt University. In 1770, the money lenders who had recently organized the House of Rothschild retained him to revise and modernize the age-old protocols designed to give the synagogue of Satan ultimate world domination so they can impose the Luciferian ideology upon what remains of the human race after the final social cataclysm by use of satanic despotism. Weishaupt completed his task on May the 1st, 1776. It's a communist holiday, isn't it? May 1, 1776. The plan required the destruction of all existing governments and religions. This objective was to be reached by dividing the masses, whom he termed goyim, meaning human cattle, into opposing camps in ever-increasing numbers on political, racial, social, economic, and other issues. The opposing sides were then to be armed, and an incident provided which would cause them to fight and weaken themselves as they destroyed national governments and religious institutions. In 1776, Weishaupt organized the Illuminati to put the plot into execution. The word Illuminati is derived from Lucifer and means holders of the light. Using the lie that his objective was to bring about a one-world government, to enable men with proven mental ability to govern the world, he recruited about 2,000 followers.
No one would help me. Even though there was a prosecution going on, they said if you ever bring up satanic ritual abuse, your credibility is lost and you'll just be a kook and it doesn't exist and it's not organized in America. Just focus on child sexual abuse. So I took my children to a child sexual abuse hospital. And while they were being treated, and I had legal custody of my children, and my husband and his lawyers and the judge found out my children were in an expert hospital, they confiscated my house, everything I've ever owned, from my baby pictures to my clothes. I walked away with literally the clothes we had on our backs. Took my cars, my federal post office box mail, my income, my assets. I lost everything by taking my children to an expert on child abuse. It was trying to stop me from what my children could disclose from being uncovered. And she showed me the drawings that the children were doing in her office. And they were of blood sacrifice, of people cutting their arms, dripping blood in chalices, of chalices with devil heads, and on and on and on. It includes group sex. It includes children being killed. And I remember I just felt like my guts were just punched out of my body. I did not know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I called every organization in the country asking for help. Children's organizations, and no one wants to acknowledge satanic ritual abuse. His mom had taken him to protect him, and they were found, and I had been underground for 3 years, by the way. The mother and this little boy were found. The little boy was taken to a basement. He was crucified alive. First he was skinned.
Belial, a mighty king created next after Lucifer, appears in the form of a beautiful angel seated in a chariot of fire and speaking with a pleasant voice. He fell first amongst the superior angels who went before Michael and other heavenly angels. He distributes preferences of senatorships, causes favors of friends and foes, and gives excellent families familiar. He must have offering and sacrifices made to him. Excellent. Number 15, create industrial depression and financial panic, unemployment, hunger, shortage of food. Use this to control the masses or the mobs, and use the mob to wipe out all those who dare to stand in the way. Well, I'll tell you right now, every expert I've talked to is talking about food shortage. And it's coming, I'm convinced. Number 17, expound the value of systematic deception. Use high-sounding slogans and phrases and advocate lavish promises to the masses, even though they cannot be kept.
Lampe, Missouri was a place where I heard George Bush and Bill Clinton talking, where, from the point of view I had, they certainly were friends, and they didn't recognize any party lines between them. That's something for the, a smoke and mirrors illusion for the public. It's not something they adhere to because they had exactly the same agenda, and that was for bringing in this new world order. I heard George Bush talking at that time. He was talking to Bill Clinton, and I've since photographically recorded it and wrote it verbatim in our book, that when the American people became disillusioned with Republicans leading them into the New World Order, that Bill Clinton, as a Democrat, was going to be put into the office of president. This was decided in 1984. Actually, I'd heard about it even prior to that, but that, as of 1984, they were already discussing it as an absolute fact.
Number 20, establish huge monopolies toward world government control. We're seeing that today, the huge monopolies. Number 21, use high taxes and unfair competition to bring about economic ruin by controlling raw materials, organize agitation among the workers, and subsidizing competitors. GATT, NAFTA. Number 22, build up armaments with police and soldiers sufficient to protect our interests. Number 24, infiltrate into all classes and levels of society, of government, for the purpose of fooling, bemusing, and corrupting the youth members of society by teaching them theories and principles that we know to be false. That I developed information about was an individual I learned about was Aleister Crowley. He likes to have his name pronounced Crowley to rhyme with holy. And the Satanists today, and for the number of years in the past, have basically used his philosophy and his writings as a guide. And so let's talk about some of his writings and teaching. And here on page 94 of his book, it would be unwise to condemn as irrational the practice of those savages who tear the heart and liver from an adversary and devour them while yet warm. In any case, it was the theory of the ancient magicians that any living being is a storehouse of energy, varying in quantity according to the size and health of the animal, and in quality according to its mental and moral character. At the death of the animal, this energy is liberated suddenly. The animal should therefore be killed within the circle. We're talking about the satanic circle, Lee. And now listen to this sentence, folks, closely. For the highest spiritual working, one must accordingly choose that victim which contains the greatest and purest force. A male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable system. We're talking about human sacrifices.
We have quote after quote after quote who he was serving and how he was serving his god Satan. He read the book of Revelation, and he read about the coming new world order under Antichrist, and he wanted to be, he said, he wanted to get in touch with Satan personally and become his right-hand man. The movement would take off in the United States like no place else. And Aleister Crowley said what he needed to do was to get a hold of the youth.
To gain entrance to the 7 gates of hell.
So a concert is an act of worship for you?
Exactly. It's a focal point to express my Satanism.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
Of course.
Are you possessed?
Of course.
The band leader says, how do you think that I became famous the way that I am? Well, I said, you must have had some good luck. Well, he says, there's no such thing as good luck. He says, there's either some power working for you somewhere, or you don't get ahead in this world. Not in my type of occupation. We worship spirits. We worship Lucifer and all his angels. They're just as beautiful as they did before they were cast out of heaven.
How can the devil save souls? What are you talking about? Man, the devil in me. I didn't hell, I did Christians. I don't care if anybody believes it. This is what is written in the Bible.
Well, wait a minute.
And it's bloody there.
Well,
And then before you know it, according to Revelation 14, everybody that takes the mark of the beast will be damned in fire and brimstone, it says, forever. And the smoke of their torment rises up forever and ever.
Our Bohemia, we beseech thee, grant us thy counsel.
Upon further research of the ritual you just witnessed, it becomes clear. It is a mixture of the Babylonian Canaanite cult of Moloch fused with ancient Druidic rites, where you have the female side of Satan, which they first call out to in the she, and then towards the horn god with the he, mixed with Masonic rites from Scotland.
It is not all the truth. We know thou waitest for us.
That humans would be made to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist. Because see, up to that time, you could walk down a street of Paris and you would have signs that would say, well, you have a soothsayer, or or a fortune teller of some type, and if you want to put a curse on someone, you could go and see this other old lady over there, the old witches. That's the way it goes. But now it had to change. Lucifer says we have to make sure that people, humans, get to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist.
How could you manage that?
Simply by using the instrument Satan himself created for that very purpose.
The second one was to find a way of being able to get total control of people's minds.
At one point in this interview, we see that his mind control programming breaks down. In covertly recorded off-air transmissions from the Bush-Clinton presidential election campaign in the 1990s, we can see that Bill Clinton was nothing more than a puppet to the puppet masters which placed him in the White House. Bill Clinton's demeanor seems to be similar to a person who is under a hypnotic trance.
Without going into a long sermon on symbols, witches and Masons identify their ownership of things to the others by their symbol.
Albert Pike issued these instructions to 23 Scottish Rite Supreme Councils throughout the world. We worship a God, but it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspectors General, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 30th, 31st, and 32nd degrees. The Masonic religion should be the Luciferian doctrine. Lucifer is God. The true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer.
Clearly, her belief in Cabala, the study of Jewish mysticism, has deeply affected her. Is the young woman who once so publicly rejected the Catholic faith of her childhood now Jewish?
You attend Jewish services now. Well, that's what some people think. I don't attend Jewish services. Straighten this out. Well, I hear the Torah, but I'm not Jewish, and nor have I converted to Judaism. I think I'm connecting to something that predates religion.
The Cabala is a collection of Jewish magical texts which were given to mankind via psychic communion with a fallen angel called Raziel. Raziel is one of a pantheon of so-called fallen angels who serve the light-bringer Lucifer. The Cabala describes the many angels and demons who inhabit the spiritual realm. The Cabala gives Kabbalists a roadmap called the Tree of Life, which explains how to invoke and communicate with these powerful spirits. The magical information in the Cabala originates from Babylon and ancient Egypt at the time of the pharaohs, but did not reach Europe in printed form until the 11th and 12th centuries. The sacred books of the Cabala are just a few thousand words long, but they contain complex descriptions of a spherical Earth, parallel universes, and the atomic nature of matter, ideas which have become common doctrine amongst modern physicists and astronomers. How could such complex information be contained in a group of ancient texts barely larger than an average magazine?
What are some of the things that scriptures talk about that we find in reality in our physical world? Here's just a couple of them. How about the fact that the earth is round, Isaiah 40, verse 22, and Proverbs 8:27? Too bad in the Middle Ages that wasn't examined. It was there all the time. How about the fact the number of stars cannot be counted? And they can't. How about the hydrologic cycle? Ecclesiastes 1:7, Job 36, verses 27 and 28. There's the law of increasing entropy, that things go from order to disorder. They lose their energy, Psalm 102, verses 25 through 27. Isaiah 51:6, Genesis 3:17, and Romans 8:21 and 22. We'll go on, because there's more. There's atmospheric circulation. Ecclesiastes 1, verses 6 and 7, Job 28:25, and 37:9. The fact that life is in the blood. You realize George Washington could have lived longer if they had recognized this? They bled him to death, as they bled a lot of people to death, because they were following the ideas of the ancient Greeks instead of what Leviticus 17:11 tells us directly. Gravitational field described in Job 26, verse 7. He hangs the earth on nothing. Springs in the oceans, Job 38:16, Genesis 7:11, 8:2, and Proverbs 8:28.
There are more fragments of the New Testament than there are for any text in the history of the world. This is important because they are also from vastly different time periods and were discovered in many different countries. So because of all that, it really means something if all 26,000 or so fragments are in agreement with each other. They're all saying the same thing, other than a few spelling errors and other minor things like that. So this also means that if the Bible was changed, it would be almost the easiest thing on the planet to prove. All you would have to do is to point to some of the older texts and say, at this point they all said this, and then, after a certain point, they all began to say that. The Bible is by far the most scrutinized series of texts in the entire world, and that there are many brilliant scholars who really dislike the Bible. And you might be surprised to find that the educated critics of the Bible don't argue things like the Bible was changed by the Vatican. They are much too familiar with the ancient text to fall for that. But maybe it was written by them in the first place. The literature of the Bible is extremely anti-Illuminati and actually gives a blueprint for their defeat. As many of you probably know, the Illuminati or New World Order system is very much one based on occult beliefs. The exact same belief system, down to the specific worship of the same Sumerian and Babylonian gods in exchange for power and control, is the very system that page after page of the Bible is exposing and condemning. The worship of the god Moloch is a good example. This is something that the Bible says that the kings of the earth were doing. Now, the way to worship Moloch was by sacrificing children primarily. They would do this by heating up the metal hands of the statue of Moloch until they were glowing red, and then placing babies on them until they died. They were choosing to burn their kids alive as a sacrifice in exchange for power. Once you read about God's judgment on these that secretly worship the sun, it's pretty difficult to imagine that the Bible was encouraging the worship of the sun. The Bible speaks out against what it calls the secret power of lawlessness in many ways. One of my favorite verses is in Psalm 2, where it says, "Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us." Another reason why it's not logical to think that the Illuminati wants us to read the Bible is that the very Illuminati system itself, which is sometimes represented as a pyramid, is a system that requires certain elements in order to function, which are threatened by the Bible. Those elements are the compartmentalization of information within their own system. That is, that the people at the bottom know less about the agenda than the people above them. And the second aspect is secrecy. The Illuminati is a secret society. Secrecy about their intent, about their identities, about their motives, about the nature of their power. It's all supposed to be a secret, or it doesn't work. But the Bible exposes all of their secrets. And not only does it expose what they're doing, but also why they are doing it. And probably most importantly, how they are defeated. History shows that the New World Order has literally done everything in its power to keep the Bible from the public. It only took a few years after Jesus' death for the Roman emperors to start to see the Bible and Christianity as a threat to the Roman Empire. It was by the time of the Apostle Paul that the Emperor Nero began his infamous attempt at the extermination of Christians. In fact, the Apostle Paul was recorded to have been beheaded during the persecution of Nero. This killing of Christians continued for almost 3 centuries. It records them being fed to the lions like it was a football game or something. In fact, the Emperor Diocletian, in around 287 to 305, he ordered all copies of the Bible destroyed. After the fall of Rome, it actually got worse. The Roman Catholic Church eventually demonstrated that Rome had never really fallen at all, and had simply began ruling under the guise of the Church. Rome's same worship of the ancient Babylonian and Sumerian gods continued under different names, being attempted to be merged with true biblical Christianity. The problem this new merger had was that the Bible clearly debunked the idea of popes and worshiping of Mary and the saints and all this stuff. So people that read the Bible immediately saw through the Roman Catholic Church and saw that they were deceiving people about what the Bible said in order to control them. So they did what you would expect them to do. That is, they made the Bible illegal around 1200. And the translations that they did have were all in Latin, so no one understood what the Bible said for hundreds and hundreds of years. This is the time referred to as the Dark Ages. One thing that you will never get from the so-called teachers in the truth movement is that the Inquisitions began because of Bible-believing Christians, and millions of true Christians were tortured in the most ridiculously brutal ways to get them to renounce the Bible. They were often burned alive with the copy of the Bible that they illegally owned. Now let me ask you, does that sound like the actions of a group that wants people to read the Bible? Let's fast forward to the modern day and ask ourselves the question, do you think that the New World Order has any influence on the state schools or the universities? Well, why are they so anti-biblical? Or do you think that they have control over the music industry or the movie industry, TV shows, newspapers? Well, why are they so anti-biblical?
They gain control of the world by bankrupting their own businesses. The Illuminati owns most, I would say 99 9/10 of the stores that you walk into and shop and the gas stations you go to. And they are going to destroy them on purpose. They are in the process of buying up over the last few years all the stores they don't own. They bought up grants, they bankrupted. They just bought up 2 guys, and you can watch for them to go out of business. And they keep in business the ones that they've always owned, and they are going to bankrupt them before long, and cripple them and destroy them. And the idea of taking over is to bankrupt the whole world where nothing is of any value, and the currency does not exist anywhere, and then come back and solve all the problems.
One message that I have, and I think we all share, is that we want you to succeed. Whether we're Democrat or Republican, we care deeply about this country. And to the extent we can, we look forward to sharing our experiences with you. All of us who have served in this office understand that the office itself transcends the individual. To watch the child they raised ascend the steps of the Capitol and take his oath to uphold the Constitution of the greatest nation on the face of the earth.
It is not all
Remember, a demon gets a little spooky picture. There are a fallen angel, an unclean spirit. They can assume any form or go into anything.